Coming to you from the M&M Exterior Studio in Nooksville, Virginia, this is Flushing It Out with Samantha Spittle, the introvert's extrovert. She talks to people so you don't have to. For now.
So I enjoyed reading your bio, and I thought it was so funny when you talked about creating DC Fempreneur as a place to help women belong, but it helped with your own sense of belonging. Because just last week I had written that with the podcast and with my whole mission in life, I want others to feel connected and seen. And just as I've been doing the work and my own, growth, healing, all that stuff that I'm passionate about, it's like, I'm finally getting it. Like, oh, I'm passionate about growth and healing and connection and, being seen and heard, because those are things that I need. I need to feel connected. I want to be seen and heard. So it's just funny. It's like the things we're passionate about always end up coming back to us, right? Like the things we are seeking out. So,
yeah, I was talking to somebody, I think it was yesterday, about, authenticity. Generally, it was like somebody was looking for an expert to speak to. And I was going through like the DC Fempreneur directory in my mind of who would be good to speak to for that. But, I like it that I'm able to feel like I know some of the members well enough to be able to say, oh, okay, this person's more into visualization versus Reiki, or this person's more into energy work than mindset. Like, oh my gosh, talk about splitting hairs. But it's just one of those things where I was talking about this to someone else, but then I found myself almost choked up a little bit because I realized that I think a lot of what I do is based on my own past experiences. And sometimes they weren't always really the greatest. And I always kind of thought that as a community organizer, I would be like this bringer of like this adopter of an awesome collective, that people would be coming to me to want to work, to do things together. And so when I started DC Fempreneur, it was like almost the opposite happened, where and it's like, I never really believed in the whole mean girls phenomenon. I didn't have that experience in high school. Not really. I mean, I was really like already in with that popular crowd in high school. So I had the opposite of experience. Like I was never left out of things. I didn't feel like I didn't belong. But what happened, I think, when you go into the business world is you think, oh, I can do anything. And, I was definitely one of those people who I thought I could do whatever I put my mind to, and was very resilient. As a child, I had a really rough childhood, not as bad as some, but more difficult than most. And so when you go out into the business world and you think, well, I can do anything and I can overcome this, and I'm very resilient, like that's who I am. But then you have these experiences that doubt whether you're capable, whether you are a failure versus not a failure. I really struggled. Mm-hmm. And as a woman and a mother, just all this conversation we're having recently about, International Women's Day and like RPGs passing, and another woman being, confirmed to the Supreme Court. All these conversations about women's empowerment brings up a lot of conversations about an individual's own experience. And for me, I feel like we're constantly reevaluating why we feel the way that we feel. I mean, maybe that was part of the reason why I went out and got a bachelor's and a master's in psychology, was because I was so curious about why everyone else behaved the way they did, or why everyone else was thinking the way that they were thinking, but maybe I was trying to make sense of it for myself. Like what the heck is my issue or something.
Well, I think it's funny you say that, because I think that you were probably ahead of the game doing that, because it's kind of one of those things where man, I can't remember. It's like everything we do, it comes back to us, like all of it. And even just our reactions to people. I remember when my best friend had her third baby, it was like from my childhood, because we'd had our first ones around, kind of coincidentally, but not so much because, we grew up together, so similar ages, and then got married. And it was one of those things, like when she had her third baby, it was like, it wasn't even about her having the baby. It was like, wait, do I want a third kid? And it's like, that has nothing to do with me. It's like, but her choice, it suddenly impacted me. And then that's like on a that's actually a big scale to have a child. But when you think about even just other people's successes and failures and this and that, instead of just celebrating them or whatnot, it's we so often are like, what does this mean for me now? And if she succeeded, and it's the whole idea of scarcity mentality, like with competition, you talked about like the mean girls and things like that. Goodness. It's like so much of it, I think, just comes to our own insecurities instead of being able to celebrate and collaboration over competition. And that's what I love about the community you're creating and have created with DC Fem. And it's funny because so many of my guests, so thank you, the guests, including you, because it's badass women, you know what I mean? Women that, want to, build a successful business, but then they're also cheerleaders for others. Because it's funny, because it's like, I was talking to my husband earlier about guests on the podcast, and it's like, I want to talk to people who either are in the field of doing the work. And by doing the work, I mean, like basically all that emotional stuff, or they're in fields, and they've done the work. You know what I mean? They've peeled back the layers, because even just something as simple as a phrase of collaboration over competition, I've noticed, because of the awesome women I've met and the conversations I've had, it's like, you're able to get to that place where you can celebrate others when you, start doing the work on yourself and kind of like, wait, like you said, maybe I went into psychology to figure why am I acting like this? Why am I reacting like this? And that's like, the quicker we can get to those places, the more we can, it doesn't mean we don't struggle with all those feelings.
Yeah.
Because we're human. Like, we're always going to have some of that icky feelings of like competition, and am I going to fail, or what does this mean for me? But I feel like you can more quickly move through the process, because you're like, wait, I know this is just my own stuff, and I can celebrate, and I can be in a community where there's other people that do what I do, and we can all just coexist.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. The whole comparison trap thing. I can't speak for all entrepreneurs, but for me, it is definitely a daily conversation with myself. Lisa, stay in your own lane. It doesn't matter what this person or that community over there is doing. And it's gotten to the point now where I'm not correcting people when they are, if they're giving me a shout out somewhere and they're saying, oh, DC Fempreneur is an online networking group. I don't correct them. We're not an online networking group, but that is a accurate description for them, and that's fine. When I talk about DC Fempreneur, I say we're a member organization and we're a supportive community for female entrepreneurs, but those are my words. Other people are going to have their own way to describe it. And one of the things I've noticed about being in this place where I really thought it was going to feel, so when I created DC Fempreneur, this was more than 2 years ago, and it was really, it felt impulsive to me, but I had to be convinced to do it. I didn't even want to. I was struggling with, what I wanted to do. And I constantly felt like I was destined for a greater purpose. And I think a lot of people feel that deep down, and they want their time on earth to really matter. But what that looks like is different for everyone. I'm not going to go be a brain surgeon. I'm not going to be a cardiothoracic, genius. But I knew that deep down I was meant to do something more than what I was doing currently. And it took me a while, I think, to be around other people who were absolutely laser focused on what they were doing. Everyone was an entrepreneur. They knew exactly what their business was. And here's the thing is, I was surrounding myself with these people, but they weren't as sure as I thought they were, because they were changing their business and they changed their goals by month to month. And they struggled with all of that behind the scenes, but I didn't know that. Right. So you're you're surrounding yourself with people who you think are, really, really focused. They know exactly what it is that they're doing and why. And so I felt really inadequate. And it took me a little while for me to kind of go out and talk to other people. Everybody always had really nice things to say. Wow, Lisa, you could do anything. You definitely aren't the type of person that can go work for someone else. You need to be doing your own thing. And then, the fear of working with someone else or for someone else brought up all of those past experiences of being out in the corporate world. I lost a really high paying job with a clearance because I had a toddler and a newborn at home. This is not going to be news to any of the females listening, but I lost a really good high paying job. I finished my master's degree. I went out to go work in the workplace doing exactly what I thought it is I wanted to do, which was educational research. And I loved what I was doing, but I was also a mother. And so, it got to the point where I was being written up for my attendance, where, how it is. I mean, you have a toddler who's in daycare. They bring home, some bug they got. Then the baby gets it, and then I get it. And then within before you know it, you've been on and off from work 4 or 5 days. Mm-hmm. And I guess just, I was in a place where that was pretty much deemed unacceptable. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like those early experiences helped me really solidify this fear that I wasn't meant to work in a traditional place, or I couldn't work for other people. But it also brought up really negative things and beliefs about myself. Mm-hmm. Like I wasn't good enough. I would need to do menial work because I wasn't capable of doing more. All of those things I told myself for years. And that part of me still thinks that. I mean, I'm not even going to sit here and act like I'm this evolved creature that doesn't think to myself, gosh, that sounds hard. Like when you want to try something new and you're not really sure. I definitely feel like I visit those places again of the doubting your capability a lot.
What's so funny is listening to you talk about the tapes, which I totally can relate to. And it's funny because, I did Mary Kay straight out of college. I finished at Virginia Tech and started doing Mary Kay. And when I would tell my story for the first few years and, was working, people would say, oh my gosh, that was so brave of you to just like go do that. Like, wow, look at you. And I was like, my internal tapes were, I was too scared to like get a real job, that I just wasn't cut out for like real work, that I needed to hustle and figure it out. And it's so funny because, you being in a space where you have this community of entrepreneurs where you encourage them and whatnot. So, and then because of the different programs you have that I've participated in, so much of our conversation, at least when I'm around, because I always bring it back, like mindset and our feelings and yada, yada. Right. There's so much there with entrepreneurs with imposter syndrome and things like that. But it wasn't until I just heard you talking that I was like, you know what? You and I know we're not alone. The opposite is true too, where we tell ourselves those stories to like, oh, we don't fit in that corporate world or that structured world, because, and it still comes down to these flaws and these criticisms of ourselves. So it's like, doesn't matter whether it's, you're feeling insecure to be an entrepreneur or you're feeling insecure to work corporate. It's like, it's all the same tapes.
It kind of is, unfortunately. And, I think that the only way to really break out of that cycle is, and I mean, of course, this is my own personal belief, but I think one of the only ways to really break out of that cycle is to really find a strong community where you feel supported. And that when you're interacting with people on a daily basis, they understand you, they speak your language, they've walked your walk. They, where else can you be where you sell something for the first time for $20 is an entire group of people going to say, yay, congratulations, $20, there's more from where that came from. If you go out in the world and say that to a group of people who are non-entrepreneurs, they're going to be like, you quit your full-time job, you're in a business and you're excited about selling something one time for $20, we'll be like, yeah, right. But for other people, it's like, gosh, you know, if it's not $200,000, it's like we're wasting our time.
Yes. So that I was talking to someone earlier about it's so important to manage what we're filling our head with. So like on social media, this is my big tip in my 10 ways entrepreneurs can show up as their authentic self online. One of the tips was be mindful of who you follow. And it doesn't mean it's not like you should follow people that think differently than you, because I'm a big believer and, we, have these different opinions and things like that. But I said, obviously it's a no brainer that you unfollow like the negative people and the, whatever. But I said, the true game changer for me, I was like, this is the good stuff right here. It's the neutral people. And what I mean by that is it's the people who are like, like you don't feel good or bad around them. But if you follow too many of those people, it just fills your head with so much like, when what you really need is like people encouraging you, that when you see their stuff, you're excited for them because it motivates you. I was like, we spend so much time in the meh. And the reason I thought of that though, is what you were talking about is that as an entrepreneur, when you're thinking of new ideas, especially when you're going to do something outside of the box, you need lots of outside of the box thinkers, because your family and friends, they love you. And it's not that they want to hold you back, but they want to keep you safe. So when you start coming up with crazy ideas of, I could do this and I can do this, it's like, okay, sure. Pat, like, okay, good luck, because they want to love you and support you. But, and it's like, I already feel all that. I need people who like believe in me, but also truth tellers. Cause if we do need people to like help,
Absolutely. And I think I've done, there was, it was Mary Sue and Jennifer Crawford's first Small Business Grit Summit, where I did a presentation about like the 5 types of people that you need in your inner circle. And one of them was the tough love sister, the person that is going to challenge you on not really an idea, but is going to say, that's really great, but how are you going to implement that? And
critical thinking.
It's like really help support you strategically, but give you really hard feedback. And those people are really, really important. And it's part of the reason why like I follow The Rock, like on Instagram. I just love him. I mean, I obviously don't lift weights, and I'm not going to ever compete in a competition, but there's something about his energy and about, the story about, overcoming things and overcoming, his own self-doubt and, growing up fat and all of that. And like, if he had spent his entire life believing that, he wouldn't be where he is, And so I think everybody kind of needs a number of individuals that they, for whatever reason, find them incredibly inspirational. And that's going to vary for everyone.
It's funny because when you talked about you need the different people in your life, that's what I love about, for me this past year with the pandemic, though, the silver lining has been finding the online communities, because I was a really big in-person networking. And when I say network, I just mean like people. I just like meeting people and having fun and whatnot. And so I didn't really ever do anything online. I wasn't on Instagram. I mean, I joined the bare minimum for the podcast. And it wasn't until COVID and being quarantined, and then after, a couple months, it's like, okay, this isn't going anywhere. And then that's when I discovered, and I always give you the credit, like you and DC Fem, like finding this community that it was intentional, because everyone I've said is like trying their best to survive. And what I found is that when you have a community where there's someone at the helm, like leading it, that it kind of, it's like being the captain of a ship, where it kind of kept everyone together because everyone's kind of off doing their thing, but it brings them together. And then it's also you leaning into your gifts too, because I've met such amazing people, but like you were I've talked about your visibility challenge. And so what I loved about that is like you, and just for people listening, it was like a way to help entrepreneurs like put themselves out online more. which is funny that that's like the thing I made, my 10th thing. It's like,
Yeah.
they see it all connects. But when we were going through the process, it wasn't just like a cheerleading thing where, oh, yay, good for you, go do it. It was actually like, nope, I read this. This is what you need. And I so appreciated that, because I can get stuck in the, I want to support and encourage. But like, no, I need someone just that looks at it and breaks it down. And I think that's why just having different people in our life as entrepreneurs and just people, even if someone listening isn't an entrepreneur, it's just like a reminder of why you need different types of people in your life, because there's just such value that we all bring, but we kind of look over here and look over there. And it's like, instead of staying in our lane, like that the things about us are gifts, that we can give other people, and they're not all the same. So.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things I really like about the DC Fempreneur community in particular is the quality of the professionalism is very high there. And I when I started DC Fempreneur, I mean, like I said, this was more than two years ago. I went out looking for a community for women that was professional entrepreneurs. And I didn't want, there were lots of groups where they were like me time, like busy women that wanted groups that for social reasons or relaxation, but that's not what I was looking for. And that's not what I wanted. I wanted something like DC Fempreneur, where we spent the majority of our time focusing on our business, what we needed to do for ourselves to get our minds right. We needed to learn a new skill. We needed to acquire something in order to level up, or, and it was really about trying to tap into the fact that all of us have, we spent a lifetime learning something. We're really good at what we do, but we need all of that knowledge and skills in order to grow our business. But there's no way all of us are going to be able to learn every single thing. Like, I can't possibly spend the next 5 years of my life learning what you do. And you're not going to acquire all the knowledge and skills I have. It's impossible. But if we are able to provide opportunities where you're sharing your lessons learned, and I'm sharing my lessons learned, and we're doing it in a supportive, cohesive way, so powerful. I mean, the trial and error is the old way of learning. It's incredibly inefficient, and there's a better way, and there's a faster way. And we don't have the time, honestly. Entrepreneurs don't have years to try to figure something out. Like, we need to know what works, and we need to know what works now. And that was really the start of why I really wanted to start DC Fempreneur, because in my mind, it was a way to create something that I couldn't find myself, but I desperately needed. And when a typical entrepreneur, if you can't find what you're looking for, when you go out looking for it, you create it yourself.
What you said about not learning the skills, like not learning mine and me not learning yours. And I think to take that even a step further, that goes back to just leaning into our strengths. And so like for you and me, because we met, well, obviously through DC Fem, but I guess the visibility challenge is when we first met.
No, I learned about you because of the Small Business Summit.
I remember that. Yes, we met there. And that's how I met you. And that's how I got to DC Fem, of course. But running meetings is one of those things. Like when I used to do Mary Kay, people would say, oh, you should do the door, like run the door check-in because you're people. And I was like, I learned.
The Susie cream cheese.
I was like, I can't, because everyone who comes in, I want to say hi to and see how their kids are and what's going on with them. I was like, no, I need the opposite personality who is like, get in. This is your check-in. Here's the books you need. This is this. Because I would be running the door and like 6 people wouldn't get checked in because I would have just talked and I forgot to give them the stuff. And
right.
But it's like,
that's me. I'm the one who keeps it moving, and like, I need someone else to be the Susie cream cheese.
Exactly. So that's why it's like it takes all kinds. And I think that's why building relationships is so important. And you said this earlier too, because you said how everyone else was struggling, like the entrepreneurs. You saw these women who you thought they had it all together. They had everything figured out. And it's like, the more you got to know them. And I think that that's why building community is so important, no matter where you're at in your life. If you're a stay-at-home mom, if you're a working mom, I mean, if you're a man, just whatever it is, it's like, you have to start peeling back the layers of a relationship, because we get into our own heads and where we think, that our weaknesses, we see our stuff as weaknesses, like those old tapes. And then we assume we're the only ones that feel that way. But then also it's the whole, we're better together. We're a team. So it's like, if we ran that check-in, it would be fire, because you would make sure all that stuff got done. And I would make sure everyone hopefully felt welcome to, we would be like a little magic team. But
absolutely, if
one of us were doing it on our own, we would struggle maybe, because it would be like, I can't run all the details and welcome everyone, and vice versa. And so that's why for me, I'm just such a big believer in building the communities and finding your people and whatnot. And just, there's always opportunities there. So it's just so funny how, this is just a crazy time, it's a crazy time. And it's like, because it's now we're here at the year mark, it's still weird, but normal. It's like, yeah, of course this is weird. It's like the anxiety everyone's carrying around. It's like, oh, I don't feel anxious, because we feel anxious all the time, So
yeah, it's become like part of just how things are, and we don't even really notice it anymore. I agree.
Yeah. But, because you have an entrepreneurial background too, serial entrepreneur, as you say, like it's something you keep having to pivot and things like that. So how has creating a community, like you said, it's kind of being aware of all the stuff from our childhood and how it affects us today and whatnot. How has creating a community brought you healing?
There's a couple of different things. The first is I created DC Fempreneur thinking I was creating a support network or a community or a place of belonging for other people. What I didn't really understand is that it was going to become my safety net, and it was going to become like my saving grace. The people that, if I'm having a hard day, I'm an entrepreneur too. On a daily basis, I'm ready to quit my business. Just like you and you and you and you and everyone, we all feel that. And that is something that is just part of the entrepreneurial journey. We have to accept it. And if you can't accept it, you're not meant to be. And that's tough love right there. If you can't get past the daily roller coaster of emotions without quitting, then you need to be doing something else, because it's going to drag you down. It's going to emotionally tear you apart. And I have been there. I would say these past few months were very difficult for me. And, we just got finished celebrating 2 years. I had a lot of doubt. Like, was I going to continue on? Will there be a year 3? Maybe I still don't know. But I had a lot of that going on for myself too. And so the answer is it's brought up a lot of feelings, things I didn't even realize I would feel. Things I had no idea I was going to feel. I thought I was creating something for others, but really what happened was I was essentially creating it for myself too.
Yeah. It's funny. It's hard, but you said that by creating this community, it brought up a lot of feelings for you. And it sounds a little Pollyanna, but I feel like I can say it because now I've experienced it. And it's like when things are really hard, and I mean really effing hard, not just like a little difficult, like really effing hard.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity though. And that's the thing where if you're willing to kind of dig deeper into your own stuff and be like, well, why am I feeling this way? Why do I feel like this?
I think it's just one of those things where I'm recognizing that, especially in the online world, there's a lot going on, and we really do need to bind together. And, like I said, I think I've amended our mission statement at least twice. And, but I really do believe that we can go further in our business and grow faster and be stronger when we work together. And it's been something that I've believed in forever, even before these were memes and hashtags believed in the power of the collective. And it just makes more sense. I mean, of course we're going to be like, okay, like we grew up and our parents would say, two heads are better than one, right? That it was the power of the collective right there. We have different words for it now, but it's essentially the same. And so I've always believed that, two heads are better than one, and two are, three is better than two, and so forth. And so I really would love to continue to see DC Fempreneur grow. And it is a goal of mine to help DC Fempreneur grow out of our region. So not just, DC, Maryland, and Virginia, but, maybe broaden a little bit, maybe into Southern Virginia or Eastern part, or maybe into Baltimore. But that requires people, learning about us, and then also being able to find a way to combine our missions. So, I haven't found somebody that is looking for something the way I was, because I think there could be a real opportunity there.
Yeah. And also it's that season. I think, what I hear is when you're building something, these are like, when you you want to grow, but it's like, okay, where are we at now? What works for you? Like what feels right for you, instead of just jumping to do it, it's kind of really leaning into what's best for you and for your benefit. You know what I mean? Because you want to help others, which is great. We all do, I think, but it's one of those things that always comes back to you, and like if it's fulfilling and enriching for you. And so, but I thank you for all the hard work you've done with your online community. And I've met badass women, including yourself. And so I'm grateful.
One of the things I agree with something that you said earlier was, I absolutely agree with that. One of the silver linings for all of this was being able to meet people that we would have never met because we were limited by location. Like, you're much more south than I am. And I'm a lot more north than you. And so the chances of us being at a joint event somewhere, it could have been years before we had found in that space. But I think that is definitely one of the silver linings is I've become really good friends and gotten to know people I would have never met otherwise. And some people I consider to be some of my closest friends at this moment, I've never met in person.
I just had that same conversation with some ladies. We were talking and we meet all the time. And we were like, none of us have met in person. And I remember someone recommended a Zoom, kind of one-on-one 2 years ago or so. And I was like, no, I would rather drive 45 minutes, have coffee for an hour and drive 45 minutes home. And now I'm like, that's 3 hours of time,
I know.
Plus getting ready with real pants. I appreciate you coming today to chat and flesh it out. And I just think that, you have some beautiful gifts and talents, and I appreciate you using them and collaborating, because I reaped the benefits from you and your skills. And so I look forward to getting to keeping community together.
It's been my pleasure. I really love it how you've been posting in the online Facebook group about, all the different people in the community that you've met and that you're interviewing on your show, because it really does help add an additional layer to that person's story. Like every time I meet somebody and I've see them virtually online in 2, 3, 4 different ways, I learn something about them every single time. So I think it's really great because it helps the rest of the community learn something about that person and what they have in common with them or how they can relate with them in a different way. So I think it's helpful. And I'm glad that you're sharing.
Oh, well, thank you. It's definitely that collaboration, because even if you never work with someone, or even if you're never going to be, in relationship with them, just having something, just learning more from people, we all can learn from each other's stories. So thank you for sharing some of your story today. And I appreciate you. And if people want to find you, how can people find you online?
Great question. So I think the best thing to do is to visit the website. It's www.dcfempreneur.com. And I can be reached via email. It's lisa@dcfempreneur.com. And of course, We have all of the things in terms of social media. So Instagram and Twitter, everything is all the same handle, at DC Fempreneur. So we have a public Facebook page, and we have a Facebook community, private group, and all of that. So I'm very easy to find online.
Yes, you are. Well, thank you, Lisa. I appreciate it. And I look forward to continuing to flesh it out online and hopefully in person one day.
And that's a wrap for now.
Thanks for listening to Flushing It Out with Samantha Spittle. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe and rate us on iTunes. For all things Flushing, visit our website at flushingitout.com. This has been a Spitfire production.
That was the greatest thing I've ever heard.